If you're hearing this, then I didn't make it to morning. Don't cry yet. I've lived long enough to know that tears come whether we invite them or not. I asked them to leave the recorder on because there are things I never said. Not because I was hiding them, but because I was afraid they would change how you remembered me. Now it doesn't matter, because memories are already all I have left. Before I became your grandmother, before I became a wife, before I became strong, I was just a girl who was scared of being ordinary. I was born in a time when girls learned silence before they learned words. My father was strict. My mother was tired. And love in our house was practical, not spoken. We didn't say, I love you. We said things like, did you eat? Don't stay out late. Close the door. That was love. As a child, I learned early that dreams were dangerous. They made you hope, and hope made disappointment hurt more. So I learned to fold my wishes neatly and hide them, like clothes you don't wear anymore but can't throw away. I wanted to travel. I wanted to read books without stopping. I wanted someone to look at me and say, I see you, but life doesn't ask what you want. It asks what you're willing to survive. I was 15 when I first learned how quiet heartbreak can be. No screaming, no drama, just the slow understanding that someone you trusted never planned to stay. That was my first love. I won't say his name. Names give people too much power. He was charming in the way boys are when they don't yet know consequences. He talked about futures the way children talk about castles in the sky. He promised me escape, and I believed him, because belief is easier than truth when you're young. When he left, he didn't even say goodbye. One day he was there. The next day he wasn't. And the world didn't stop. That was the hardest lesson. I learned to smile differently after that. Not the careless smile of a girl, but the careful one of a woman learning control. That's when your grandfather entered my life. Quiet, patient, unassuming. He didn't promise me the world. He promised consistency. At the time that felt small. Now I know it was everything. I won't lie to you. When he first held my hand, my heart didn't race. There was no fire. There was comfort. And I mistook comfort for weakness. That was my second mistake. We married not because I was deeply in love, but because I was deeply tired. Tired of uncertainty. Tired of waiting. Tired of disappointment. I chose safety, and I spent years punishing myself for it. Your grandfather loved me immediately. I loved him gradually. That imbalance haunted me. He worked long hours, came home exhausted, still asked about my day, and every kindness felt like a reminder of my own emotional delay. I never told him how afraid I was. Afraid that love should feel louder. Afraid that something was missing. Afraid that one day I'd wake up and regret everything. Then you were born, and suddenly love had a face. A weight in my arms. A breath against my skin. Motherhood didn't make life easier. It made it clearer. I stopped asking what I deserved, and started asking what I could give. Even in happiness, regret whispers. It always does. Now I am here, at the end of the road, and I can finally say this without shame. Love doesn't always arrive the way we expect. Sometimes it waits patiently, until we are mature enough to recognize it. Your grandfather was my slow miracle, and slow miracles last the longest. I'm tired now, but this is only the beginning of what I need to tell you. There are things about sacrifice, about silence, about the cost of being strong. My voice sounds weaker now. It's not because the memories are heavy. It's because I carried them for so long. Marriage did not soften us. It exposed us. Two young people living in a world that demanded strength. Before teaching kindness, we lived in a house with thin walls and thick worries. Every sound echoed. Arguments sounded louder. Silence sounded heavier. Money was always short. Dreams were the first thing we learned to sacrifice. Your grandfather worked wherever he could. Jobs that broke his back and humbled his pride. He never complained. That hurt more than if he had. Because when someone suffers quietly, you feel guilty for noticing. There were days I looked at him and thought, this is my life now. Not with anger. With fear. Fear of smallness. Fear of repetition. Fear of disappearing into routine. I didn't want adventure anymore. I just didn't want to feel invisible. Sometimes, Love alone doesn't make you feel seen. We argued over nothing. The tone of his voice. The way food was cooked. The way silence stretched too long. Truth is, we were fighting the same enemy. From opposite sides. He was fighting exhaustion. I was fighting regret. And neither of us knew how to name it. There was a night. I remember it clearly. Rain pressed against the windows like it wanted to come inside. The children were asleep. He sat at the table, head in his hands. I stood in the doorway and thought about leaving. Not because I didn't love him, but because I didn't know how to love him properly yet. I packed a small bag. Just essentials. I stood there for a long time. And then he looked up. Didn't ask where I was going. Didn't accuse. He just said quietly, "If you go, I'll understand." That sentence broke me. Because nothing makes you stay. Like being given permission to leave. I unpacked the bag. I never told him how close I came to walking away. Life moved on. It always does. Children grow. Bills multiply. Dreams shrink quietly in corners. I became efficient at survival. Strong. Reliable. The kind of woman people praise. But strength has a cost. You stop asking for help. You stop confessing doubts. You start believing your silence is noble. It isn't. It's lonely. There were moments, small ones, that slowly changed me. Watching him teach a child how to ride a bicycle. Seeing him give away his last money to someone who needed it more. Hearing him defend me when I wasn't there. Love didn't arrive dramatically. It arrived patiently, like water wearing down stone. Regret has a voice. Sometimes late at night, I wondered what my life would have been if I had waited longer, if I had demanded more passion, if I had been braver. But regret is a greedy thing. No matter what you give it, it asks for more. Years passed. Our hair grayed. Our hands aged. The arguments softened into conversations. The silence softened into comfort. One evening, without thinking, I rested my head on his shoulder. It felt natural. That's when I realized something terrifying. I had become afraid of losing him. Not because I depended on him, but because I finally understood him. I never told him this next part. There were days I loved him fiercely, and days I loved him quietly. And that quiet love, it was the truest one, because it chose him, even when nothing was exciting anymore. I'm pausing now, not because the story ends here, but because the next part is where the truth becomes harder to carry. There are things about motherhood, about guilt, about sacrifices no one sees, that I still need to say. Stay with me. I'm not done yet. Motherhood doesn't arrive like joy. It arrives like responsibility. Heavy. Permanent. Unforgiving. They tell you it's instinct. That love just happens. They don't tell you how terrifying it is. To realize someone's entire life depends on how well you survive your own. When my children were small, I was always tired. Not the kind of tired sleep fixes. The kind that settles into your bones. I learned how to function without rest. How to smile without energy. How to give without feeling full. People praised me. You're such a good mother. They didn't see what it cost. There were moments I lost patience. Moments I spoke too sharply. Moments I chose chores over listening. Moments I thought, just be quiet, please. And every time, guilt followed like a shadow. Motherhood teaches you this cruel truth. You will never feel like you've done enough. I loved my children fiercely. But love doesn't cancel exhaustion. There were nights I cried silently, because I felt like I was disappearing. I wasn't a woman anymore. I was someone's mother. Someone's wife. Someone's solution. And no one asks solutions how they feel. Your grandfather tried. He really did. But he didn't know how to enter my silence without feeling like he was intruding. So he stayed just outside it. That space between us grew, not from neglect, but from misunderstanding. I became strong because I had no choice, and strength became my prison. Strong women don't get asked if they're okay. They get expected to be. There was a day. I remember it clearly. One of the children was sick. The house was loud. The world felt relentless. I locked myself in the bathroom and sat on the floor. I didn't cry. I just sat there numb, wondering when life became so heavy. That was the day I realized. Loving others completely means abandoning parts of yourself. And no one warns you about that. So I wouldn't undo it. Because love changes shape, stops being loud, and becomes steady. It becomes presence. I watched my children grow. Without realizing time was stealing them. Suddenly they needed me less. And I didn't know who I was without being needed. That's when regret returned. Not about love. About time. Time spent worrying instead of watching. Time spent rushing instead of listening. You don't realize moments are precious. Until they're memories. Now I'm here. And I want my children to know this. I loved you even when I was tired. Even when I was distant. Even when I failed. My silence was never absence. It was survival. My breath is shorter now. But my mind is clear. There's one more truth I need to share. About your grandfather. About forgiveness. About the thing I should have said long ago. Stay with me. This is the hardest part. There is a moment in every life. When you realize silence has cost you more than truth ever could. I reached that moment too late. Your grandfather and I didn't fight much in our later years. Not because everything was perfect, but because we were tired. Tired of proving. Tired of explaining. Tired of reopening wounds we had learned to live around. We became gentle with each other. But gentleness can sometimes hide unfinished conversations. There was something I should have told him. Not a betrayal. Not a secret that would shatter us. But a truth that would have healed us. I should have told him how long it took me to love him fully. Not to hurt him, but to honor him. Because loving someone slowly does not make the love weaker. It makes it deeper. I saw the changes in him before he did. The way his steps became careful. The way his breath grew shallow after small efforts. The way he paused more often, as if listening to a body that no longer obeyed. I waited. I always waited for the right moment. The truth is there is no right moment. There is only courage. One evening he sat beside me quietly. He didn't look at me when he spoke. I know I wasn't always enough, he said. Those words cut deeper than any argument. Because they were wrong. And because I had helped him believe them. I wanted to say, you were more than enough. You were patient when I was distant. You stayed when I was unsure. You loved me before I knew how to love you back. But fear stopped me. Fear of reopening old wounds. Fear of making him question the past. Fear of my own tears. So I said nothing. And silence answered for me. He smiled softly and changed the subject. That's how men like him survive. By accepting less than they deserve. I regret that more than anything. Forgiveness is strange. We often wait for others to ask for it. Without realizing we also owe it. To them. And to ourselves. I forgive myself now. Not because I was perfect. But because I was human. If he's listening to this. I need him to know. You were not my safe choice. You were my brave one. Brave for staying. Brave for loving quietly. Brave for never demanding what I was too afraid to give. My body feels heavy now. Like it's slowly letting go. But my heart feels lighter. Than it has in years. Because unspoken words weigh more than age. And I've finally set them down. There is one last thing. Not a confession. But a goodbye. And it deserves its own moment. Stay. I can feel my body loosening its grip on this world. Not all at once. Just enough to let me know. I won't be here much longer. There is no fear in me now. Only reflection. I used to think death would feel dramatic. Like something heavy and sudden. But it's quiet. It's the soft understanding that everything you worried about no longer matters. The house, the money, the missed chances, they all fade. What remains are faces. Moments. Hands held in the dark. This is truly my last breath. Then let me use it well. To say thank you. Thank you to the life that tested me. Not because it was kind, but because it taught me depth. I learned patience from waiting. Strength from surviving. Love from staying. Thank you to my children. You were my greatest teachers. You showed me that love multiplies when it's given. Even when it leaves you empty. If I ever seem distant, know this. I was learning how to give without losing myself. Sometimes I failed. But my love never did. And to you, my husband, if I could sit beside you one more time, I wouldn't talk much. I would just hold your hand. And let silence finally mean peace. You were never invisible to me. I just didn't know how to say it soon enough. But I hope you felt it. In the meals. In the waiting. In the way I always came back. Life did not give us a perfect love. It gave us a real one. And that is rare. My breath is shallow now. Each inhale feels like a question. Each exhale feels like an answer. I'm ready. Not because I lived without regret, but because I finally told the truth. If you remember me, remember this. Love doesn't need to be loud to be real. Some of the strongest loves are lived quietly. I'm tired now. It's okay. I'm not afraid. I've said what I needed to say. Goodbye. Silence.